Hello lovelies, welcome back to The Tangent. We're in episode 5 of season 2. Yay! So I have a pretty complex relationship with my body for a whole bunch of reasons, and my understanding and acceptance around this has grown and changed over the years, right? And the complexity of that relationship arrives at random moments, and clarity can come in the form of a memory as well. And that's what happened this week, and so I want to share the realization with you. So join in on clearing up that confusion with me as we go through this episode. Buckle up, lovelies. We're taking a ride through some of the quirkiest corners of my life on wheels. I'm Katie, and I've been doing this disabled thing since day one. This is not your typical disability education podcast. Every tangent, every detour is a chance to look behind that curtain of disabled life, unravel the threads of confusion, and discover those, whoa, that actually makes sense moments. Eventually, this is The Tangent, where laughter is the map, curiosity is the compass, and understanding blooms even in the craziest corners. Hit subscribe, grab your headphones, and get ready to be surprised, because the way to understand why is to embrace the wild, hilarious how. So let's do the thing. Okay, so this is a story about how the things we carry with us stay with us, and we don't even really know where we pick them up until we get a random memory at 3 in the morning. So it's also a story about splinting, and splinting is a big area of discussion and I think often disagreement in the disabled community, and people have a lot of feelings about it. So I'm gonna share some of my feelings about it. And remember, quick caveat, disclaimer, these are my feelings and opinions, and if yours are different, that's totally fine, and we can talk more about it and find space for everybody to have their opinion and be influenced by their life experiences. So here's the story. I have been doing some form of physical therapy for basically my whole life, because I was diagnosed at 11 months old, and then therapy was just, it happened. When I started going to school, and it was a special school, I did those therapies as part of my school day. I did all of them, physio, speech, and OT. And I feel like it's just kind of understood as part of your life when you have a disability. We just need some more expertise and support sometimes, because sometimes your body is ridiculous. So I remember being told this analogy at some point in a session, and it was probably around when I was 6 years old, 6 to 8 years old. And I unintentionally embedded this analogy in my psyche. And I don't think that it motivated me or pushed me to do what they had intended when sharing it with me. I generally don't react in the way that people expect me to react. When my high school business studies teacher decided to call me lazy, and he thought that it would motivate me to work for him. I was like, okay, cool, I'll show you what lazy looks like. And for the rest of the year, I just did no work in front of him. You know, we can be petty sometimes. But moving on. The analogy in this story, it was about underwear. So go with me, okay? So it was linking the idea of underwear elastic and my muscles and tendons and whatever. And we will unpack this here together because to this day it confuses me a little bit. So the idea was, you know how when your underwear elastic gets old or overused or just like stretched out and they never go back to how it was originally, like when you bought them. And supporting your muscles and ligaments and whatever is the same. Like you have to work hard to make sure that you keep them in like working order and they don't reach the point of no return. So that was the story that I was given. So just a couple thoughts on this. Maybe more than a couple thoughts. So first of all, I think that's a weird motivation strategy. It's a little bit ableist, I feel, in that it very much leans into the fear-mongering and like being more disabled. I'm doing air quotes, being a bad thing, right? And it's important to note that I was 6-ish when this happened, and my hands and wrists were pretty much straight then, which is a weird thing to think about now because my hands and body don't look the way that they did then. So that's interesting. But the other thing is that neuroplasticity is a thing that exists. And I have learned new things and built new pathways like as a grown up, like for a lot of actions and like activities. And because my disability is kind of a neurologically based one, it just makes me question the validity of this analogy for me and like the way I exist in the world, because my brain can learn how to do new things even if it didn't have the capacity to do that before. So those are some like starting point thoughts on that. But here's the other thing. We're getting into the splinting part of the conversation now. I was deep in the splinting game for 11 years, right? I used so many different ones and so many different types of these things. So I had hand splints, the ones that go underneath, the ones that go on top. We tried different ones for like decades. I had foot splints, started off with the long ones. I think those ones are called like AFOs. And then they felt very like big and visible to me. So I was like, can we get smaller ones? So I had ankle height ones, right? We also had like gaiters for my legs so that they could be straight. And we tried the arm ones for a very short amount of time because that just was not really a practical solution for me. So nobody can come at us for not trying these support strategies. And I'm not defeatist in any sense of the word, but things do need to be practical. They need to make sense, and they need to fit in with your life and what you want. Some people think that I'm anti-splinting, and that is really not the case. I think it definitely has a place, but I believe that the purpose of splinting is to support function and making it easier to do the things that you want to do. So when it doesn't support function and you're doing it because you want to look more normal or whatever that reasoning is, then I feel that it's maybe a good moment to have a deeper conversation about that, even if that conversation is with yourself. And I think the focus should be, like, if it's important to you and what you want as a disabled person, then do it. It's about autonomy and what you do with your time and day being your decision. So whatever your thought process or reasoning is, like, just have a good understanding of what that is so that you can justify it to yourself and be happy with whatever decision you're making, and that it, like, supports your life in the way that you want it to. So in my experiences, my desires, I guess, shifted when I was like 11 years old, and quite forcefully as well. I like lots of decisions and like powerful feelings all at the same time, and I knew and know that my life is different to other non-disabled people, but when I was 11, I wanted my disability to be less like obvious and loud and like blatantly supported, I guess. It was an interesting phase, and I have circled back, guys, to being overt and bold and loud about my disabledness, like 20 years later. But you know, it's a journey. It's a thing that I say all the time on this podcast. It's a journey. And big examples, like, I didn't want to ride my bike at school because nobody else is allowed to do that, right? And I didn't want to wear hand splints anymore. And I made my argument to my parents, and I won the debate. And I think it is important that in that moment I was listened to, because I think it like affected my like mental trajectory with how I feel about my disability and my like management of it. And here's my overview. I did the splinting and therapies thing forever, right? And my body has still changed. I don't walk anymore, but walking was always a therapeutic exercise rather than a functional part of my life. So I wasn't walking functionally to get myself anywhere. So keep this in mind when you consider my decision-making processes, okay? And my wrists aren't straight anymore. They are at a strong 90-degree angle now, and they still work really well for me. I have learned to work with them the way they are, and that's cool for me. I'm cool with it. And when I made the choice to stop doing the hand splints, it was a practical decision, and also an emotional decision. So objectively, I have more function and I'm able to do more things with my hands as they are compared to when I was wearing splints, right? Like 80% less function when I had the splints on my hands. And that just makes zero sense to me, also because I need to be doing stuff. Like, I need to be an active person. So me just sitting, not doing anything for the sake of stretching my wrists, like, that was just unreasonable to me. And it was an emotional thing too, because with the functional aspect not landing in the positive contribution to my life zone, it really became a conversation about aesthetics and looking normal or typical, and that doesn't bother me enough to make the hand splints worthwhile for me. I spent way too much energy and time feeling self-conscious, and not for the reasons many would assume. I don't feel weird about my hands being at 90 degrees. Someone tried to make fun of me or humiliate me or whatever by saying that I look like a praying mantis, and I just think that's really funny, because also, have you seen a praying mantis? My hands do look like that, so I just take it as that guy has good observation skills. Like, good job to you. Self high fives. My self-consciousness lived in me when I was wearing the splints, because they were kind of bulky, and I really felt like I looked like a lobster. So I cared way more about feeling like a lobster than looking like a praying mantis. And that feels like a profound realization in my, like, disability pride journey. So this is where I'm coming back to the underwear elastic story, right? And how it sat in my body for decades. I was in a therapy session talking about this, like, self-conscious, overly aware side of myself, and saying that a little piece of me always recognizes when people are watching me and looking at my hands. And I don't, like, it's not like an awkwardness or like a, like, it was just a recognition that, like, oh, they're watching me and they're looking at my hands. And in that recognition lives that tiny little piece where it's like, oh, they're looking at me because my hands don't look normal, and that's not ideal, right? And that's kind of the logic that was behind that thought. And my therapist, she is a very smart lady, and she said to me, why don't you just paint your nails, and then you can change your internal narrative and tell yourself that they are admiring your nail color, instead of that entire negative story that I had just told her. And guys, that changed my whole perspective, and that whole downward spiral thought process was rooted in a random, like, 2 in the afternoon point of no return underwear elastic like, analogy that I was told when I was 6 years old. So we carry things, and I hope as you're listening, you are not hearing this story with judgment, because I'm not sharing this story to throw shade at anyone. I'm sharing this to open the door to understanding how impactful your comments can be and actually affect how the person receiving your words, and that the person receiving them you're most likely not interpreting them in alignment with the way they were intended to be heard. I unknowingly held on to that random shitty analogy and had it as like a foundation for understanding myself, and it impacted my behavior for decades. That is wild. So let's all have a little bit more grace and understanding and awareness when we give random analogies that we don't give a lot of credit to, because they may become a foundation for somebody else.